You ever drive a stretch of road so long it starts looking familiar? Not in a, oh, I've been here before way, more like in a, this road knows me way. Yeah, that kind of road. At first I thought it was just the late-night miles, the fatigue. Maybe I was seeing things. You get in that zone where it feels like the lines on the highway are moving underneath your tires. Your eyes play tricks. The horizon feels like it's always just out of reach, and you're never quite sure if it's the road that's bending or if it's you. I'd been driving for nearly 8 hours straight when I hit the stretch near Route 6, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, a little east of Barstow if I had to guess. Barely any traffic, just me, the hum of the engine, and the headlights piercing the night like long, sharp fingers. A single long haul heading back to Santa Fe. There was something comforting about it. The solitude, I mean, it's not loneliness, not really. It's the rhythm of the road, the hum, the miles, the music barely keeping you awake. I've done it all before. Most drivers have. You get used to it. You forget how much time passes until your body starts aching and your eyes start playing tricks. It wasn't until I passed a sign that I really felt something was off. I saw it, clear as day. The sign for Route 6 and the junction said it was 12 miles away, the usual. Nothing to worry about. But a little voice inside me tugged at the edge of my brain. It didn't seem right. Maybe it was the way the sign was lit, flickering a little. In the headlights, or the way the air seemed to get colder the closer I got. You know the feeling. Like when you're walking in a quiet neighborhood and you suddenly notice all the windows staring back at you. Every little thing starts to stick out. But I didn't think much of it. Just another odd moment, part of the endless miles. I kept driving. 12 minutes later, I passed the same sign. Route 6, junction 12 miles. I didn't freak out. It's not like I had a panic attack or anything. I just thought, okay, that's weird, and kept rolling. Maybe the road split off and looped back. I wasn't paying much attention to the scenery. It was dark, flat, the kind of stretch of highway where the world feels like a black hole around you, with no end in sight. Another 10 minutes passed, and then I saw the sign again. The exact same sign, the one with the rusty green edges and the scratched-up lettering that read, Route 6, junction 12 miles. I squinted, looked around, checked the GPS. Nothing. The map was empty. Blank. No signal, no time, no coordinates, just a black screen with a single blinking cursor. Like it was waiting for something to happen. I pulled over to the shoulder, idling, the truck's engine still humming in the cold night air. My fingers drummed on the wheel, the weight of something off sitting on my chest. I climbed out of the cab, boots crunching on the gravel. The night was still, but it felt wrong, too still. No wind, no birds, nothing. I looked down the road. Same black ribbon of asphalt ahead. Same fog rolling in from the distance, thick and heavy, swallowing everything but the headlights. I didn't know it then, but I should have turned around right there, but I didn't. I checked the tires, the air pressure. I did all the things a trucker does when they've got nothing else to do but stare at the empty road. My flashlight flickered a little, throwing weak beams on the reflective markers along the side of the highway. That's when I saw it. The first thing I shouldn't have seen. Lights, headlights, far off, far behind me. At first I thought it was a car coming up fast or maybe someone who'd pulled over, but there was something off about it. They weren't normal headlights. They were too wide, too intense, like they were focused directly on me. I hopped back in the truck and slammed the door. It wasn't that I felt like I was in danger yet, but something about those lights, it wasn't just the brightness, it was the way they felt. Like they were burning through the fog, searching. I couldn't explain it, but I knew I didn't want to stick around to figure it out. I turned the engine back on. The truck rumbled to life, and I punched the gas pedal. Just get me out of here, I thought, but it wasn't that simple. The road stretched on, hand on. The headlights followed, closer now, but not in a normal way. More like the air around me started bending, twisting with them. The fog swelled like it was alive, reaching for the truck, pulling the tires sideways. The engine strained, under the pressure. I glanced in the rear-view mirror. The headlights were so close now I could see their glow reflecting off the rear bumper. I kept my foot on the pedal, eyes glued to the road ahead, but it was hard to keep my mind on the lane. The edges of the highway blurred. It felt like the whole world was twisting around me. Then I saw it. The same sign. The one that said, Route 6, junction 12 miles. Again, same words, same rusted edges, same faded green. But now, it was getting to me. My pulse started to pick up. My palms were sweating. I felt trapped. What the hell? I floored it. Didn't even look behind me. Just kept the pedal down, barreling down that empty road. The headlights followed, staying exactly the same distance behind me. I could almost feel the presence back there now. It wasn't just a car, it was hunting me. The miles slipped away, no change. The fog, the road, the sign, it was all repeating. Same mile markers, same bends in the road, same twists in the asphalt. Every time I thought I was breaking free, I came back to the same stretch. The same damn sign. At one point, I stopped the truck. I had to. I was losing my mind. I needed to figure this out before I lost all control, but when I killed the engine and stepped out again, something was different. The fog had thickened, and there, just at the edge of the headlight beam, a figure, tall, thin, shadowed, but moving. I didn't wait to see who it was. I scrambled back into the truck, slamming the door behind me. I checked the rear view again. The headlights were gone. But it didn't matter. They weren't chasing me anymore. They were waiting for me to realize the truth. The GPS was still blank, no signal. I tried calling dispatch, dead air, static. Then, as if it was on cue, the clock on the dashboard flickered. It was 3:22 a.m. I stared at it for a second, stared until the numbers shifted. 22 a.m. I blinked, and then the clock reset. 22 a.m., and that's when I knew. I wasn't getting out. I don't know how long I sat there staring at that damn clock on the dashboard, waiting for it to move. It didn't. It didn't budge an inch. The numbers stayed locked at 3:22 a.m., no ticking, no second hand, no sign of the hours passing. Like time had just frozen, but everything else kept moving. The fog, the headlights, the road. All of it kept on, dragging me along. Every time I looked up, there it was, another stretch of asphalt, another mile marker. Same road, same signs, same loop. It was like I was on a giant, endless treadmill with no way to stop or jump off. I was trapped. I pulled the seatbelt tight across my chest and turned the engine back on. It rumbled to life, the engine groaning as if it knew something was wrong too. Maybe it was tired, maybe it was scared, but I sure as hell was. The thing about a loop, about being stuck in it, is that you can't feel the passage of time. Not in the way you should. There's no dawn to mark the end of the night, no sign of the world changing, it's just dark. I took a deep breath and stared out the windshield. The headlights from whatever was following me were gone, but I could still feel it waiting in the fog. That's when I realized something I hadn't noticed before. I wasn't alone. I'd seen it once. Just a glimpse. A figure. Barely. More than a silhouette. It had been standing by the side of the road just at the edge of the headlights, but in the split second I caught sight of it, I knew it wasn't a person. Not a normal one, anyway. The way it stood, stiff and unnatural, like it was frozen in place, waiting for me to look. The shadows around it seemed to warp and twist, and its body, its shape, was wrong. Too tall, too thin. It didn't fit into the world around it. It felt off. But I hadn't wanted to look. I didn't want to acknowledge it, so I'd driven faster. The seconds dragged on as I drove, my fingers white on the wheel, my grip tightening with each mile marker that I passed. It was getting harder to focus. The road felt blurry. The lines on the asphalt seemed to shift, almost like they were trying to pull me into a different direction. The fog was thicker now, pressing against the windshield like it was alive, suffocating the air. The road was closing in on me. I couldn't stay on this path much longer, but where else could I go? Every turn I took, every mile I drove, I kept seeing the same damn signs, Route 6, junction 12 miles, same rust, same fading green, same number every single time. I wasn't even sure if I was going forward anymore. For all I knew, I could have been driving in a damn circle. My eyes burned from the lack of sleep, but I kept pushing forward, trying to ignore the twisting feeling in my gut. Then I saw it. Again, this time I didn't look away. There it was, on the side of the road, standing in the same spot as before. I slowed down. Too slow, maybe. I don't know what came over me, but I just couldn't help myself. The figure was different this time. Taller, leaner, almost skeletal. It stood perfectly still, its face hidden in the shadows, but I could feel its eyes. I could feel them burning through the fog. My heart hammered in my chest. I could see it just beyond the fog, its silhouette almost blending into the darkness around it. But I knew it wasn't just standing there for no reason. It was watching me. It was waiting. Waiting for what? I slammed my foot on the gas and took off, tearing down the road faster than I should have. The fog was too thick, the headlights barely. Cutting through it, I gripped the wheel harder, knuckles aching, teeth clenched. I glanced in the rearview mirror. The headlights, they were back. But now they were closer. Much closer. Too close. I looked back up at the road, trying to steady myself, but the fog had become suffocating now. It wasn't just around the truck. It was inside the truck, in my lungs, in my head. I couldn't see 5 feet ahead of me, but I could feel the weight of something behind me, following me, growing closer. The road was endless, the same signs repeating, mile after mile. No changes, no exits, no signs of life. Just me and that damn fog. And then I saw the sign again. Route 6, junction 12 miles. That's when I realized something else, something terrifying. The road wasn't just looping back on itself. The world wasn't resetting every 12 hours. I was resetting. I was stuck. And whatever was after me. It wasn't resetting, it was learning. It all hit me in that moment like a sledgehammer to the chest. I was being hunted, and not in the way I thought. I wasn't running from something unknown. I was running from something familiar, something that remembered me. Whatever it was out there, it wasn't just some random thing wandering the highway. It had been watching me. It knew my every move, and if I didn't get out of this loop, it would get me. I couldn't take it anymore. My mind was starting to fracture. Every passing mile felt like 100. Every sign, every mile, marker. It was all the same. Like a broken record that kept playing, and no matter how hard I tried to pull the needle out, it just kept spinning. I had to stop. I slammed my foot on the brake and pulled off the road, coming to a screeching halt. On the shoulder. The truck was shaking with the force of my stop, but I didn't care. I wasn't going to drive anymore. I wasn't going to wait for it to catch up. I wasn't going to wait for it to finish me off. I grabbed my flashlight, ready to go outside and figure out just what the hell was going on. But as soon as I opened the door, I saw it again. Closer this time, standing just off the road in the fog, its figure blocking the path. I froze. My heartbeat stopped. It wasn't alone. There were more. There, behind the first figure, I saw more. Shapes. More bodies. Thin, tall, like shadows stretched too far, too thin, and they were walking toward me, slowly, like they had all the time in the world. I snapped the door shut and scrambled back into the cab, locking the doors. My mind was racing. They're not just watching me. They're waiting for me to make my next move. I glanced at the clock. 22 a.m. Time was running out. But not for me. I didn't know what time it was. I tried. I really did. I tried looking at the clock, but the damn thing had stopped. Frozen. Stuck on 3:22 a.m. like it was mocking me. Every time I glanced at it, it was the same. Nothing. No passage. Of time, no seconds ticking by. I had to get out of the truck. I had to do something. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I couldn't even hold the steering wheel straight. The fog was so thick outside I couldn't see anything, and the creatures I'd seen standing in the shadows, they were still out there. I could feel them just beyond the mist, waiting, watching. They knew I was here. They knew I was scared. They could smell it, feel it, and they were coming. I glanced back at the side mirror, the headlights, the ones I'd seen for the past several miles, following me, getting closer and closer with every blink. I could still hear the low hum of the engine, the static in my ears as if the world was glitching. I needed to do something, anything. I couldn't stay stuck like this, not with those things out there, but what could I do? I didn't know where I was. I didn't know if I was stuck in some hell loop or if it was just the isolation messing with my head. Everything was starting to blur together. Everything felt wrong. I finally turned off the engine. Nothing happened. No eerie silence. No sudden crack of unnatural stillness. Just nothing. I stepped out of the truck, my boots crunching gravel underfoot. The air was colder than I remembered. Ice cold, like it had dropped a few degrees just while I was inside the cab. My breath billowed out in front of me, thick and heavy. I tried to shake off the creeping sense of dread that had wrapped itself around me, but I couldn't. I glanced up at the sign again, the same one that had been mocking me every time I drove past it. Route 6, junction 12 miles. I swallowed hard. I didn't know why, but it felt like the sign was laughing at me, like it knew what was coming. It knew how many times I'd passed it, and I was getting the sense that the more I drove, the more it was watching me. Waiting. Suddenly the headlights hit me full on from behind. What the hell? I whirled around, expecting to see another vehicle, but no. No vehicle. The lights were too wide, too bright. It was that same thing, the thing I saw earlier, standing by the side of the road. But now it was different. It wasn't just standing there anymore. It was moving, slowly, deliberately. Its shape, its presence stretching unnaturally, like a tall black figure walking straight out of the fog. I staggered backward, but my legs didn't feel like they were moving right, like they were weighted down. The fog was closing in thick and choking. The lights from the figure got brighter, closer. It was coming for me. Then, out of nowhere, the air around me shifted. Everything stopped. Like time had just frozen for one brief, terrifying moment. I could still feel the pressure of the fog, but I couldn't hear anything. No engine noise, no wind, not even the distant hum of tires against pavement. Just complete silence. Then, click. The fire. Clock in my truck flickered back to life. It was 3:22 a.m. The moment it reset, the world around me did too. I gasped, stumbling back into the cab of the truck. I don't know how to explain it, but the second I slammed the door shut, I felt like I had been dropped into a different place. Not a different location, but a different time. The truck was still there, the fog was still there, but everything felt reversed. Like a rewind button had been pressed. I checked the dashboard. The GPS was still dead. But the clock. It was now, counting backward. 21 am. I slammed the truck into drive, my heart pounding against my chest, the fear so thick I could barely breathe. I threw the truck into gear and sped off down the road, desperate for something, anything that felt like progress. But as I turned the corner, I saw it, the same damn sign. Route 6, junction 12 miles. It wasn't just that the sign had reappeared. It was that it had reappeared with the same damn words, the same rusted metal, the same worn-out paint. I slammed on the brakes again. My chest felt tight. My head was swimming. How could this be happening? I sat there for a moment, gripping the wheel, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be possible. There was no way. But then I realized the truth. I was stuck. I was stuck in the same 12 miles, the same stretch of road over and over again. The clock reset. The road reset. The fog, the sign, the headlights, it all reset. I looked into the rearview mirror, expecting to see those same headlights, those burning, glaring lights that were always just behind me, always chasing me. But this time, the headlights weren't there. I exhaled a shaky breath, letting my body relax a little, but just as quickly as I relaxed, I saw something that made my stomach drop. The figure, that same tall, black, shifting thing. But now it was standing in the rear view, right behind me. So close I could almost feel its presence pressing against the glass. It was moving again, slowly, stepping toward the truck. I couldn't wait. I couldn't sit there and hope it would go away. I couldn't sit around and let it catch me. The world had reset, and with it, everything around me had come back like it was on a loop. But this thing was different. It wasn't just chasing me now. It had learned, it remembered. It knew what I was going to do before I did. I shoved the truck into reverse, spinning the wheel and flooring it, tearing through the fog as fast as the tires would carry me. I looked into the rearview mirror again. It was closer now, much closer. But it wasn't alone. I saw other shapes, not just one creature, but many, all around the truck, all moving in a slow, deliberate walk, like they were closing in. They didn't run. They didn't have to. The fog wasn't stopping them. It was guiding them, pulling them toward me. I screamed, but there was no one to hear. Then, just as I thought I couldn't go any further, the truck lurched, the engine sputtered, the lights flickered, and then the world shifted again. The clock reset. 22. Everything, all over again. I was right back where I started. Same mile, same fog, same figures moving toward me. I wasn't going anywhere, and neither was the road. I was trapped. I could feel the sweat drenching my back, but the cold air outside the truck, sharp and heavy, made it impossible to wipe it away. Every time I blinked, the fog seemed to close in a little more, pushing in like it was trying to swallow the world whole. But the worst part? The worst part was the absolute silence. It wasn't that there were no sounds, because that would have been easier to bear. The worst part was that everything sounded wrong, even my breathing, even the sound of my pulse thudding in my ears. They were here. I didn't need to look out the windshield to know. I could feel them moving closer. The air around me had thickened, almost like it was saturated with something else, something alive. But it wasn't the fog, it wasn't the world outside. It was the figures. The ones I had seen, the ones that followed me. I slammed the truck into gear again, trying to push my foot to the floor, but no matter how fast I drove, I could see them in the corners of my eyes, the shadows at the edges of the headlights. Too tall, too still, standing just outside the reach of the light. They weren't moving toward me, not yet, but I knew that would change soon enough. The first time I saw one of them clearly, I was going about 70 miles per hour down that endless stretch of highway, trying to outrun the sinking feeling that the world was shrinking around me. It wasn't a person, not even close. It was like a thing from someone's nightmare, a creature that had been plucked straight out of a horror story. But it didn't run like a normal predator. No, it moved in these long, fluid strides, as if it had all the time in the world. Its limbs were impossibly long, too long, and as it stared at me from the edge of the road, its face was nothing more than shadows, swirling like a void. I slammed on the brakes, screeching the tires against the pavement. The truck, jerking to a halt. My heart was slamming in my chest, my hands trembling as I looked back at it, unsure of what to do. I couldn't even think straight. The air was choking me, the fog so thick that I could barely see the dashboard lights. All I could see were the eyes, the burning eyes. That's when I realized it wasn't alone. There were more, a lot more. Threw the truck into reverse and floored it, spinning the wheel as I backed up, the fog blurring everything around me. My headlights caught a glimpse of another figure, then another, its long fingers reaching out, its silhouette twisting unnaturally. As it started to move closer, I was trapped. I was in a cage with no walls, no way out, and no way to fight back. I couldn't outrun them. I couldn't hide from them. The loop had already reset once, and the things I was running from, they were still here, still following me, and they were getting closer. I didn't even realize I was crying until the tears blurred my vision, running down my face, mixing with the sweat. I couldn't think straight. My thoughts were scattered. How could this be happening? How could they be real? These things, these monsters, I couldn't believe my eyes, but I couldn't look away either. The world around me felt so wrong now. I was too far gone. No matter how many times I slammed my foot on the gas, no matter how fast I drove, the road just kept going, and the figures just kept following. It was like they knew what I was thinking, like they were waiting for me to make my next move. Had to think. I had to do something. I took a sharp turn at an intersection that had never appeared before, but as soon as I made it, I was met with the same stretch of road. Same fog, same sign, same mile marker. It was the same damn loop. My stomach turned. That's when I realized. I wasn't just being followed anymore. I wasn't just being hunted. They were herding me. They were chasing me, but they weren't after the truck. They were after me. I slammed my fist against the wheel in frustration. This wasn't just a bad dream. It was my reality now, and every time the clock reset, I was pulled back into this nightmare. I tried to steady myself, but my thoughts were a jumbled mess. I could hear them now, moving in the fog, too close for comfort. Their footsteps were quiet, deliberate. They didn't need to rush. They didn't need to chase me. They were toying with me. I glanced in the rearview mirror again. One of them was so close now that I could see its shadow in the reflection, crawling along the ground behind me. It was dragging itself now, crawling slowly, its limbs bending in unnatural angles, clicking like bones snapping in places they shouldn't. The fog was swirling around it, bending with it. The thing, if you could call it that, was growing, stretching upward as it moved. Its body was long, slick, its skin stretched tight like it was too big for itself. I could barely see its face, just a black void with hints of shimmering light where its eyes should have been. There was no shape, no recognizable form, just a distorted, writhing mass of shadows. I couldn't look away. I knew I should, but I couldn't stop staring. I tried to tear my eyes away from the mirror, but the shadows shifted. It was no longer behind me. It was beside me. My breath hitched in my chest as I swerved the wheel, almost sending the truck into the opposite lane. But there was no one else on the road. No other vehicles, just me and the figures that stalked me. I couldn't think, I couldn't breathe. I was suffocating in the fog. I slammed my foot to the brake, causing the tires to screech again. But this time the truck didn't stop. It slid right past the edge of the road. I fought with the wheel, desperately trying to regain control, but I was losing. Everything was out of control. The road seemed to stretch on forever, but every time I thought I saw the end of it, the mile markers repeated. Same sign, same Route 6, junction 12 miles, graffiti-stained, rusting away at the edges. The creatures were closing in, step by slow, deliberate step. I could feel them, their presence pressing down on me like a weight, heavy and suffocating. I couldn't stop, I couldn't escape. No matter how hard I tried, no matter how much I screamed into the night, I couldn't get away. And then the truck stopped. Suddenly, everything around me came to a screeching halt, like I'd hit an invisible wall. The engine died. The creatures, they stopped too. I couldn't breathe. My hands were trembling on the wheel, and I was frozen in place. I didn't know if the fog was growing thicker or if I was simply losing my mind. I glanced around. No sound. Not a breath. Not even the hiss of the fog moving. Everything was still. Too still. The clock on the dashboard flickered and my heart dropped into my stomach. Wham! The clock reset. Again. And then the world around me shifted. The creatures moved once more, stepping toward me. Only this time, I realized, they weren't just out there in the fog. They were already inside. They were in the truck with me. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I couldn't even blink. I couldn't breathe. It was the first thing I noticed when the clock reset. Again. My chest felt tight, like the air around me had thickened, like it was pushing down on me, suffocating me from the inside out. My heartbeat pulsed in my ears, but there was something else now, something else moving, something creeping beneath my skin. I tried to focus, but my thoughts were too scattered, too tangled. The truck's engine hummed back to life, but I didn't dare move. I didn't even touch the wheel. I was afraid that if I did, I'd feel them again. The eyes. They weren't just outside anymore. They were inside the truck. Watching me, I could feel them. Behind me, beside me, everywhere. And no matter where I looked, there was nothing there. Just the fog. Thick, suffocating fog that pressed in like a blanket. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the eyes, those damn eyes, watching me from the corners of the fog, watching me from the rearview mirror. They weren't human eyes. They weren't even eyes in the way I understood them. They were black, shiny black like oil, dark enough to swallow whole. And they glowed, not from light, but from something deeper, something hungry. I couldn't keep my hands steady. I gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, but it didn't help. The truck swerved slightly as I tried to keep my focus. I needed to move. I needed to get away from whatever the hell this was, but I was trapped. Trapped in this hell loop with those things hunting me. I turned my gaze to the fog ahead, trying to focus on something, anything, that wasn't the terror creeping under my skin. But the road was unchanged. Same stretch of highway. Same mile marker. Same sign. Route 6. Junction 12 miles. The words mocked me. They were always there, like a grim reminder that no matter how fast I drove, no matter how much I tried to outrun this nightmare, I was still stuck in it. The road didn't end. The fog didn't clear. The clock didn't stop. It just reset, over and over again. I felt something shift again, something deep and insidious, as if the fog around me was closing in tighter, constricting. The temperature dropped. The chill in the air was so sharp it felt like a physical thing. It wasn't the fog, it wasn't just the cold. It was the creatures. They were closing in, and now I knew why. They wanted me. They weren't just following me. They weren't just waiting for the next reset. They were hunting me, and every time the clock reset, they knew exactly where to find me. I turned my head sharply. I couldn't help myself. The urge to look in the mirror, just to make sure they weren't closer, was overwhelming. And there they were, the eyes. Two deep, glimmering black orbs just behind me, in the rearview mirror, not in the fog anymore, not just hovering outside the truck. No, these eyes were inside with me, staring at me. The reflection wasn't a creature. It was nothing, just the eyes. Black and shiny, staring directly into mine, and I could feel them. I could feel them piercing me, reaching through my skin, burrowing deep into my thoughts. It was as if they were trying to drag my soul out of my body. I screamed, shouted, but there was no sound at all. My voice was stuck, held prisoner in my throat. My breath was coming too fast, too shallow, and my heart was a drumbeat, an echo of panic. Had to get out of here. Now. I slammed the truck into drive again, and my hands were shaking so badly I almost missed the shift. The fog twisted in the headlights, thickening as if it were alive. The road stretched out ahead of me like an endless snake, winding and turning. But no matter how fast I drove, I couldn't outrun it. I couldn't outrun the feeling that I was being pulled deeper into their world. Every mile marker I passed was the same as the last, the same as the one before it. There was no progress. The only thing that changed was the pressure of the eyes. They were getting closer. I slammed on the brakes again, the truck screeching, sliding slightly off the edge of the road, narrowly missing the guardrail. The truck jerked to a stop and my head slammed against the steering wheel, but I didn't care. I was too afraid to even blink. I reached for the door handle. I had to leave. I couldn't stay in the truck. The longer I stayed, the worse it would get. The creatures were closing in. I could feel them breathing down my neck. I didn't want to die like this, not like this, not trapped in the fog with those things. But when I pulled open the door, the air outside was too much. It slammed into me like a wall, cold and suffocating. My vision blurred for a moment, my eyes stinging as I stepped out, and there it was. I didn't know how, but I saw it. The fog wasn't just fog anymore. It was more. It was thickening, rippling, alive. I felt a movement behind me, and before I could turn, I heard something. A whisper. A word. A name. But it wasn't mine. Lena. I froze. The voice wasn't human. It was deep and rasping, like it had crawled out of the earth itself, like it had been waiting, watching. And it wasn't calling me like a person calls another person. It was pulling at me, yanking at me like it already knew me. I wasn't just stuck in the loop. The loop was made for me. I backed up slowly, eyes scanning the darkness, but I couldn't see past the fog. There was no figure standing there, no shadow in the mist. But I could feel them. I could feel them closing in, their presence pushing, the air thick around me. Then I saw them, the eyes again. Only now there were more, hundreds of them, all around me, in the fog, in the trees, in the air itself. And they weren't just looking. They were waiting. They were hungry. I turned and ran, panic making my legs move faster than my brain could catch up. My shoes slapped against the wet pavement, but I didn't dare look back. I knew what was behind me. I knew what was out there. The fog swallowed me, and the eyes, those black gleaming eyes, they followed. I stumbled and fell, skin scraping against the asphalt, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I had to keep running. I had to find a way out. But as I pushed myself up, I felt something shift, a pressure in the air, like the world around me was bending, cracking under the weight of something ancient, something evil. Gasped, looking up. The sign was ahead of me, the same damn sign, Route 6, junction 12 miles. The loop had reset again. They were waiting. The road didn't feel real anymore. I stumbled forward, my body moving on its own as if the fog had seeped into my very bones. Every step was heavier than the last, each breath harder to catch. My head was spinning. Every mile, marker, every sign, every turn. Everything was blurring into one endless, suffocating stretch of road. The same stretch of road that never seemed to end. The same stretch of road that had swallowed me whole. I wanted to scream. I needed to scream. But the scream was stuck in my throat, just like everything else. My body felt like it was being pulled, dragged like invisible hands were clutching at my insides, wrenching me forward into something I couldn't escape. The fog was thicker now, more than just a mist. It was like it had shape, a weight, almost like it had a presence of its own. The creatures weren't around anymore, not in the form of the tall, shadowy figures I had seen before. But I could feel them. They were still here, watching me. And I could feel the pull of their presence, that heavy, oppressive weight settling in the pit of my stomach. I had to think. I had to fight back. This wasn't just about running anymore. I wasn't just trying to escape the road, the fog, or the creatures. It was something else, something deeper, the truck, the loop. It wasn't just a trap for me, it was a trap for everyone who had come before me. All the drivers who had passed through here. They were part of this. The loop had claimed them, and now it was pulling me into the same fate. I stopped dead in my tracks, my chest tightening as the realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't running from these things anymore. I was becoming one of them. The pull, the way the fog twisted around me, tightening, drawing me in, wasn't just the creatures trying to catch me. It was the loop itself. The loop was a living thing, and it had been pulling me in from the moment I started. The creatures weren't hunting me anymore. No, they were waiting for me to finally realize the truth. They weren't just the hunters. They were part of the system, part of the cycle, and I was about to become one of them. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog from my mind, but it was no use. The more I fought against it, the stronger the pull became. The ground beneath my feet felt softer, like I wasn't walking on solid earth, but on something shifting, something that didn't want me to leave. I tried to move. I tried to run again, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. I couldn't force them to work. It was like my body had become sluggish, weighed down by the very air I was breathing, and then I heard it, a low hum. It wasn't the wind, it wasn't the fog, it wasn't my imagination. It was a sound vibrating through the ground beneath me, reverberating through my body like a warning. I turned slowly, and there in the thickening fog I saw them. The eyes, hundreds of them, maybe more. But they weren't just watching anymore. No, they were moving, sliding through the fog, crawling toward me with the same unnatural slowness I had seen before. Their movements were fluid, almost liquid, as if they didn't have to move the way I understood movement. They were sliding, through dimensions, bending reality itself, as they followed the pull of the loop. They weren't just eyes. They were the creatures. The things I'd been trying to outrun, but this time they weren't shadows anymore. They had bodies, twisted, contorted forms that defied all logic. Long, gnarled limbs that stretched and folded into shapes that no human eye should ever witness. As they were coming for me, dragging themselves toward me with an eerie, unhurried determination. I didn't have time to think. My heart slammed in my chest. I turned to run. No, I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't obey. They were too heavy, too slow, as if something was holding them in place. I couldn't move. My feet felt glued to the pavement, sinking slowly. Into the road like the asphalt was swallowing me whole. That's when I heard it. A whisper, deep and guttural, rattling through the fog. Join us. The voice was everywhere, as though it was coming from the very air itself. It wasn't one voice. It was a chorus, 1,000 voices whispering in unison, and I couldn't tell where they were coming from. It didn't matter. The words were enough to make my skin crawl. Join us. The pull was getting stronger, too strong to fight against. I could feel it digging into my chest, pulling at me, dragging me toward the fog, toward the eyes, toward them. They weren't chasing me anymore. They didn't have to. I wasn't just running from them. I was running into them, running into the loop, running into their world. I screamed again, but the scream was swallowed by the fog. I had to fight. I had to break free. I closed my eyes, tried to shut out the whispers, the eyes, the pull. I focused on anything, but the terror eating away at me, the fog, the creatures, they all were just parts of the loop. It wasn't about them anymore, it was about me. I opened my eyes again. I had to find a way to stop the loop, to stop them. But the more I focused, the more I realized I couldn't break free. I wasn't just a part of the loop. I was becoming the loop. The creatures, they weren't hunting me. They were waiting for me to join them, to become one of them. They had been waiting for the loop to reset, for me to finally realize that the only way out was to give in. And I was running. Out of time. The fog was suffocating. I could feel it pressing against my chest like a hand around my ribs, squeezing the life out of me. Every breath was a struggle, and the whispers from the creatures echoed in my head. The chorus of voices growing louder, more urgent. Join us. Become one of us. It was impossible to ignore the pull now. It was inescapable. I wasn't just walking toward them. I was becoming part of the fog, part of the cycle, and every step I took, every breath I drew, the more I felt the weight of it dragging me down. But I couldn't give in. I refused. I staggered forward, pushing through the mist, my heart pounding in my chest, my head pounding with 1,000 voices. The ground beneath me felt like quicksand, each step a battle to keep moving, but I couldn't stop. Not now. Not when I was so close. The eyes were still there. They hadn't left. They never would. Hundreds of them glowing with that black, oily sheen, watching, waiting, always moving closer. But now, I could see the truth behind them. Their bodies, twisted and monstrous, shifting in and out of shape like the fog itself. They weren't just creatures, they were the manifestation of the loop. They were the loop, and they were waiting for me to accept it, to give in. I couldn't let that happen. I wouldn't let them win. The more I struggled, the more the voices grew. I could feel the weight of the loop pushing down on me, pulling me towards something I didn't fully understand but feared nonetheless. I had to stop it. But how? My eyes snapped to the road ahead. The endless stretch of it, the same stretch I'd been driving for what felt like forever, had become more than just a path. It was a symbol of my prison. The road itself had trapped me. The road itself was the loop. That was when it hit me. Wasn't stuck just because of the creatures. I wasn't stuck because of the fog. I was stuck because I was still following the path. The road was a circle, a never-ending spiral, and as long as I kept moving forward, I was only going to keep circling. I could try to outrun the creatures. I could try to break through the fog, but I was still following the same goddamn road. The moment I stepped onto it, the moment I allowed it to claim me, it was already too late. The road itself had me trapped. I stopped walking, standing in the middle of the road, my breath coming in short gasps. The weight of the loop was closing. In around me, the fog, the eyes, the whispers, they all felt like a tidal wave, drowning me in their pull. But now I understood. I had to stop walking the road. The thought scared the hell out of me. Could I really do it? Could I break the loop, or was I just another piece in the cycle? But I had to try. I had no choice. I couldn't let them win. Turned sharply to the side, my legs unsteady beneath me. I wasn't on the road anymore. The trees were thick around me now, the air colder, the ground harder beneath my boots. I had to keep moving off the road, off the path that the loop had set, but the fog didn't like that. It shifted. It bent. The fog had always been an obstruction, a barrier that had twisted everything I thought I knew. Now I felt it move, alive, following me, wrapping around my legs, pulling at my ankles like hands trying to drag me back. The eyes were everywhere. Now, hundreds of them swirling in the mist. They were following me. I ran. The trees blurred past me, and the air grew thick with pressure as the ground beneath me seemed to tremble. The more I ran, the stronger the pull became. Like invisible ropes were attached to me, dragging me back, trying to force me to return to the road. But I couldn't stop. Not now. Then, the whispers reached a fever pitch. Join us. The sound was deafening. I could hear their voices in my head. their words sinking deep into my mind. They weren't just trying to scare me, they were reaching for me, trying to claim me. I stumbled, falling to my knees in the dirt. The air around me crackled, an energy so thick I could taste it. The creatures weren't just chasing me anymore. They were calling me. They were becoming me. Their voices were becoming mine. I couldn't stop. I had to fight. I wasn't just fighting to break free from the fog. I was fighting to keep myself from becoming a part of it. A part of them. A part of the loop. I forced myself to stand again, feeling the pull in every part of me, the invisible chains tightening around my chest, my throat, my legs. But this time, I didn't run back to the road. This time, I stopped. I planted my feet firmly in the dirt, and I did the one thing I had been terrified of doing. I faced it. The fog rippled as if sensing my defiance. The creatures circled, their glowing eyes now brighter, more intense. The ground under my feet began to shake again, and I could hear the earth groaning, as if it too wanted to swallow me whole. But I held my ground. There was a moment of silence. Absolute, suffocating silence, and then the fog parted. It wasn't much. Just a small gap in the thick, shifting mist, but it was enough. And beyond that gap was something I couldn't quite comprehend. A door. No, not a door. A gateway. It was like the fog itself had opened up into another world, a different reality. The air on the other side was clear, untouched by the fog. I could see the stars. I could feel the chill of the night air. This wasn't part of the loop. This was something else, something real. But the creatures didn't want me to go. I felt a sharp pain in my chest as something latched onto me, like a hook, sinking deep into my skin. I gasped, my vision blurring. The creatures were pulling me back, their voices becoming a howl in my head. You can't leave. You belong to us. I took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of strength I had left. I didn't belong to them. I never had. I wasn't just some cog in their cycle. I was Lena. I had a choice, and if I wanted to break the loop, I had to take it. With every ounce of will I had left, I pulled myself forward, pushing through the grip of the fog, through the pull of the creatures, and stepped into the gateway. Chateau. Moment I crossed into the light, the world behind me shattered, the fog disintegrated, the ground trembled, and the voices, they faded. I didn't look back, but as I took my first steps into the unknown, I couldn't shake the feeling that the loop hadn't truly ended. It had only changed, and whatever had been waiting for me on the other side, it was far from over. The first breath I took on the other side felt like I was finally seeing the sun after a lifetime of darkness. I had crossed the gateway. I had escaped the fog, the creatures, the endless loop. The stars above me weren't distorted. They weren't pulling at my mind. The world around me was still, calm and full of life. Everything the loop wasn't. I stood there, my legs trembling, my chest heaving, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't hear the whispers in my head. The oppressive weight of the fog was gone. The pull that had kept me locked in place was released, and I was free. I closed my eyes, letting the cool night air fill my lungs, taking in the sweetness of fresh air, air that didn't smell of damp earth and decay. The world I had stepped into was quiet, still, and I had never been so grateful for silence. But something didn't feel right. I opened my eyes and looked around. I was standing in the middle of a desolate field. The landscape was familiar, too familiar. The soft rolling hills, the half-dried trees swaying gently in the breeze, the occasional flicker of a distant light. It was a place I had seen before, a place I knew. Cinder Junction. I had stepped right back into it, but there was no fog here. There were no creatures, no endless loop, no road to drive down forever. It didn't make sense. I had escaped. I had walked through the gateway. I had broken the loop. I shouldn't be here. A chill ran down my spine. How had I ended up back in Cinder Junction? I stumbled forward, looking for answers, my heart pounding in my chest. This was wrong. This wasn't real. I had to be dreaming. I had to be. But my senses told me otherwise. The cold wind brushed my face, the crunch of dry leaves underfoot, the faraway hum of insects. This was all real. And this was the place. But how? Why? Then I heard it. A faint, eerie hum, like a distant heartbeat thumping through the air. I froze. The sound was impossible to ignore. It was familiar, too familiar. It was coming from the road. The road, the same road I had driven on. The road that had looped me for days, pulling me into its never-ending cycle. The road that had claimed every other driver, and then me. I turned my head sharply. There, at the far edge of the field, a thin stretch of asphalt ran through the dry grass, winding its way through the landscape. I didn't want to go near it. I knew better. I had escaped the loop once. I couldn't let it pull me back in. I had to turn away. I had to. The hum grew louder, a sudden gut-churning vibration in the air that made the hair on my neck stand up. And then I saw it. The truck, my truck. It appeared on the road like it had been waiting for me. The engine roared to life, the headlights blinding in the dim light, the tires screeching against the asphalt. I could feel the blood drain from my face. The truck was moving toward me with an impossible speed, its engine growling like an animal hunting its prey. It wasn't just my truck. It was the truck from the loop, the one I had been trapped in, the one that had carried me through the fog, the one that I had driven for hours, for what felt like years, never knowing if I was ever going to escape. But it wasn't the truck that terrified me the most. It was the driver, the figure inside the cab. I knew the shape of it. I had seen it before, lurking behind the wheel, a shadowed face, a twisted grin that never seemed to fade, eyes that glowed in the dark, cold and empty. The driver was no longer human. It was one of them, one of the creatures. I stumbled backward, my breath coming in short, panicked bursts. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, rooted to the spot. I couldn't run, couldn't think. It was coming for me. The truck's headlights burned through the field, cutting through the darkness like a beacon, and behind it, the eyes started appearing. More of them, hundreds, thousands. They were moving toward me, crawling out of the earth itself, coalescing from the shadows, their shapes twisting and warping. The creatures weren't just following me anymore. They were here. They had always been here. And then I heard that voice again, the one that had haunted me for so long, the one that had whispered in my ear through the fog. You cannot escape. The voice was closer now, sharp, familiar. It wasn't just the voice of the creatures anymore. It was the voice of the loop itself. You are ours. The truck was almost on top of me now. The growl of the engine vibrated through the air, as though it was made of something more than metal, something alive, something that could taste my fear. But I wasn't going to let it win. Not again. I had been here before. I had escaped the loop. I had walked through the gateway. I had broken free, but it had followed me. It would always follow me. I couldn't escape it. Not if I stayed here. Not if I let it pull me in again. I looked down at my feet, at the dry earth beneath me, and something stirred deep within me, something I had never felt before. I had escaped, yes, but the loop didn't die when I walked through the gate. It didn't break. It didn't end. It just shifted. I felt the ground tremble beneath me, the earth shuddering with the weight of the creatures that were still lurking, waiting, ready to claim me once more. I knew that if I stayed here, if I stayed, in this place I would be pulled back into it. I had to leave. I had to go. I turned around and started to run, my legs moving despite the weakness in my body. The truck roared behind me, but I didn't look back. The creatures were close now, too close, but I couldn't stop. I ran through the field, toward the edge of the fog, toward the gateway, but the path was growing narrower. The mist was closing in again. The road was calling me back, the road that had always been there. I made a choice. I wasn't running from them. I was running toward them. I wasn't going to escape this time. I had to destroy the loop once and for all. The fog thickened, enveloping me once again. But this time it wasn't a trap. I was going to make sure it never claimed anyone again. The fog closed around me like a living thing, folding in on itself as I ran. It wrapped around my legs, my arms, my chest, trying to pull me back. The road beneath me seemed to shift, twisting and contorting like a serpent, and I felt that familiar, suffocating weight settle in my bones. The creatures were there. I could hear them, their breath hissing from the mist, their eyes glowing in the darkness. But I was done running. I had made my choice. I wasn't going to keep fleeing, not anymore. It was time to face this, all of it. I had to destroy the loop. I had to destroy what had taken so much from me. The truck was behind me now, its engine roaring like a predator stalking its prey. The figure inside it, one of them, was waiting. I could feel its eyes on me, glowing through the fog like twin beacons, pulling me toward it. The pull, the temptation to turn back, was almost overwhelming. The whispering voices in my head told me to stop, to go back, to join them. But I knew better. I had been listening to those voices for too long. They were lies. I reached the clearing where the gateway had appeared before, the spot where I had walked through thinking I was free. But now the air was thicker, more oppressive. The gateway wasn't here. The path to freedom. The way I thought. I had escaped, had disappeared. I was alone. I looked around desperately, my heart pounding. The fog swirled like a storm, covering the sky, the earth, everything. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't see. The loop was closing in on me again, faster than ever, and I realized something. Something terrifying. I wasn't the one who had been controlling the cycle. The cycle had been controlling me. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. I had been trying to escape, but the loop wasn't just a place, a stretch of road, or the fog. The loop was inside me. Every time I stepped away from the cycle, every time I tried to leave, it pulled me back. It was part of me, wrapped around my mind, inside my bones, eating away at me. The gateway hadn't been an escape. It had been a test, a trick, to see if I was strong enough to make the choice. But it wasn't about breaking free. It was about accepting the loop. It was about becoming part of it. I swallowed, my throat dry, my body trembling. The creatures were closing in. I could feel them moving around me, their glowing eyes lighting up the fog. They weren't going to give me time to think. They were going to make sure I would never leave, but then something happened. The air shifted. The fog stilled. I could hear it now, the heartbeat, the thrum of the loop itself. It was like the ground beneath me was alive. I could feel the pulse of the cycle in my veins. It wasn't just in the fog. It wasn't just in the truck. It was inside the very land itself. You think you can break free? The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, echoing through the fog. It was the loop. It was speaking to me. I didn't know how, but I could hear it as clearly as if it were whispering in my ear. This is your destiny. You will always return. You will always come back. You are the loop. I shook my head, my mind racing. No, I refused. I couldn't be part of this. I couldn't keep going in circles, never finding peace. The road, the truck, the creatures, they weren't real. They were all symptoms of the loop, things that used to hold me in place. And as long as I believed in them, as long as I kept fearing them, I would never escape. I looked up at the sky, at the swirling clouds, the thick, oppressive mist. I realized something then. I had been fighting the wrong thing. It wasn't the creatures that kept me trapped. It wasn't the road or the fog or the truck, it was my fear. The loop thrived on fear. It fed on it. And as long as I was afraid, I would keep returning. I took a deep breath. This was it. I wasn't going to run anymore. I wasn't going to fight the loop. I was going to confront it, head on. I had to stop seeing it as something outside of me. I had to see it as part of me, accept it, and then destroy it. I stepped forward. The creatures froze. The truck's engine sputtered, its headlights dimming. The fog around me began to thin, curling away like smoke, and I stood there, my feet planted firm in the dirt, staring at the swirling void of the loop. You will never leave, Lena. I didn't flinch. No, I said quietly, my voice trembling, with certainty. I won't leave, not because of you, but because I'm done running. I am the loop, but the loop isn't me. And then, with a force I didn't know I had, I raised my hands to the sky. I closed my eyes, focusing all my energy into one single thought. I refused to be afraid. I wasn't going to let the cycle control me anymore. I wasn't going to let it pull me back into the dark. The ground beneath me trembled, the air pulsing. I felt the loop fighting back, trying to twist my thoughts, to remind me of the fear, the terror that had kept me trapped for so long. But I pushed harder. The fog began to recede. The creatures, the truck, the road, they started to disappear. I could feel it. The cycle was breaking. And then I felt something else. Something terrifying. A pull. A force that wasn't the loop, but something deeper. Something darker. It was trying to drag me back. To keep me from finishing this. I could feel myself being yanked toward the darkness. But I resisted. This time, I wasn't going to give in. I reached into the very core of the cycle. I could feel its pulse, its rhythm, its heartbeat. And in that moment I understood. The loop wasn't a prison. It wasn't a place. It was a force, a thing that lived because we feared it. And the moment I stopped fearing it, the moment I saw it for what it was, it lost its power. With everything I had left, I shoved my hand into the heart of the loop and tore it apart. The world around me shattered. The fog split open like a wound. The road dissolved beneath my feet and the creatures screamed. Shrill, angry wails that faded into nothingness. The truck vanished, and the earth itself seemed to buckle and twist, as if reality itself was rewriting itself. And then there was nothing. No fog, no road, no creatures. Just silence. I stood alone in the void, my body trembling, my heart pounding. The loop was gone. But at what cost? The silence stretched on, and as I waited for something, anything, to happen, I felt it, a presence, and I knew deep down I wasn't done. The loop had been destroyed, but the world I was left with was fractured, torn apart by the very force I had set free. There was no going back. There was only forward. I stood in the silence for what felt like an eternity, unsure if I was even breathing as the world around me settled into an eerie stillness. There were no sounds, no distant hum of engines, no whispers in the fog. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could actually hear my own heartbeat. I could feel the air, cold and crisp, like it had been scrubbed clean. The world was still. It should have been a relief. I should have felt free, light, unburdened. But instead, there was an emptiness settling into my bones, something heavier than any of the fear that had kept me running all these months. I had done it. I had destroyed the loop, torn it apart with my own will. The fog was gone. The creatures were gone. The truck, the road, the never-ending cycle, they were all gone, but it wasn't enough. I looked around, but there was nothing to see. No horizon, no sky, no earth beneath me. It felt like I was suspended in the middle of nothing. A void. Not an emptiness of peace, but a stillness that clung to me like cold sweat. The silence pressed in on me from all sides. It was unnerving, disorienting. The weight of my choices felt like a constant presence, a shadow looming over me. I tried to take a step forward, but my foot met nothing. I tried again, but there was still nothing beneath me, no ground, no surface. I wasn't falling, though I wasn't drifting. I was simply floating. The realization hit me like a punch in the gut. I wasn't in the world anymore. Panic started to creep in. I turned around in every direction, looking for something, anything to grab onto. But there was nothing. The fog was gone. The road was gone. The world I had known was gone. And then I felt it. A cold wind blew through the empty space, a soft whispering sound like a distant song. It wasn't the fog's usual oppressive weight. It wasn't the creatures' voices, but something else. A presence. It was subtle at first, a mere sensation, a fleeting feeling at the edge of my awareness. But then it grew, the air around me vibrating with a pulse, a heartbeat. Thump. My heart raced. I could feel the pulse, feel it reverberating through. The emptiness from deep within the nothingness. It was far, far away, but it was pulling toward me. Thump, thump. The beat grew louder, and I understood what it was. The loop wasn't gone. It had shifted. It had been transformed. I could see it. Then, shapes flickering in the shadows, shifting in and out of my vision like faint outlines of things long buried. Figures moved in the distance, their features blurred. It was as if the very fabric of reality was stretching, twisting, warping around me, but I couldn't make sense of it. Then a voice whispered through the air, low and guttural, seeping into my skull, the very marrow of my being. You can never break free. I flinched, my hands instinctively reaching up to cover my ears, but the voice was inside my head now, all around me. You thought you could destroy it. You thought you could escape, but you are wrong. I backed away, though there was no real place to go. The figures, shadows, dark shapes, barely human, drew closer, their movements unnatural, jerking in and out of focus like an old film reel gone awry. "You are the loop," the voice said again, "and the loop is you." My pulse was a pounding drum in my ears, my throat tight with panic. What was this? What was happening? I had destroyed the cycle. I had freed myself. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the words wouldn't come. I felt the pull again, deeper this time. It wasn't just in the air or the fog. It was inside me, twisting, suffocating, consuming. I was trapped. The shadows were getting closer now. They were no longer just silhouettes. They were starting to take form. Pale, twisted faces emerged. From the darkness, their eyes hollow and empty. Their hands reached toward me, their mouths stretching into grotesque, silent screams. "The price of freedom," the voice continued, "is the destruction of the self." The figures were getting too close now. I couldn't escape. I couldn't outrun them. I wanted to scream again, but my body wouldn't move. I was locked in place, frozen by the weight of their gaze, the cold emptiness of their presence, and then finally I understood. The loop wasn't just a place. It wasn't just a thing, it was a force. And I hadn't destroyed it, I had only changed it. The cycle wasn't something that could simply be erased. It was a part of me now. It was a part of the very fabric of existence. I had broken the loop, yes. I had ended the cycle of the fog, the creatures, the endless road. But in doing so, I had unlocked something worse. I had freed the darkness. The true power of the loop wasn't the road or the truck or the creatures. It was the absence of everything, the hollow space between the cycles, the place I had found myself in now, the figures, the shadows, the whispers. They weren't just remnants of the loop. They were its true form. They were the parts of the loop that had always been here, the part that had never been visible. They were the hunger beneath the surface, the true price of freedom. I stumbled back, my legs shaking, my breath quick and shallow. The figure closest to me reached out, its hand cold and clammy as it touched my skin. A jolt of ice coursed through me, freezing my veins. I gasped, my chest constricting, and I realized something. There was no escaping this. The loop wasn't gone. I wasn't free. I had become part of it. I was the anchor. The price of my freedom wasn't just my soul. It was the world itself. The loop had never been something that trapped people. It was something that needed them. I had tried to destroy it, to escape it, but in doing so, I had released it. And now it was coming for the world. The dark figures moved closer, their eyes glowing with hunger, and I realized there was no escaping the loop. There was no way to outrun what it had become. I had broken the cycle only to unleash something much worse, and I was the one who had set it free. The fog had returned, creeping in from the corners of my vision, thick and suffocating. But this wasn't the same fog that had trapped me before. This was alive. It pulsed with an energy I could feel, almost taste. There was no clear line between it and the shadows that lurked just beyond it. The figures were back too, their twisted shapes moving with purpose now, their hollow eyes burning with an insatiable hunger. The true nature of the loop had been revealed, and I could feel it closing in on me, on the world. I stood frozen, my chest tight with panic, as the figures circled around me, their movements sharp and deliberate. Their eyes, glowing faintly, scanned me, and I knew deep down that they were no longer the same mindless creatures I had once outrun. They had purpose. Now, they had been awakened by my actions. "You've freed us," the voice whispered from all directions, reverberating in the very air around me. It was the same voice that had taunted me in the void, but now it was sharper, more focused. "Now, you will learn what it means to be the loop. You will see what you've unleashed." The ground beneath me trembled, sending a shockwave of dread through my body. I stumbled back, my legs weak, but there was nowhere to go. The figures were everywhere now, their outlines flickering in and out of the fog, drawing closer with every breath I took. The cold air thickened, pressing against me, suffocating me with a weight that I couldn't escape. They were here to feed, and I had led them straight to the world. I could see it now. I could see the pattern of destruction they were creating. The loop wasn't just a place. It was a force of nature, a destructive energy that fed on fear and chaos. Every step I took, every move I made, had unraveled the fabric of reality itself. The loop was never confined to that stretch of road. It had always been waiting, hiding beneath the surface of the world, and now it was rising. The figures reached out toward me, their hands cold and sharp as they touched my skin. Every place their fingers brushed left a searing burn, like ice, carving its way through my flesh. I screamed in agony, but the sound was swallowed by the thickening fog. The world was dissolving. The horizon was becoming a jagged blur, the earth itself warping under the pressure of the loop's resurgence. Tried to run, but it was no use. The loop was no longer a place, it was inside me and it was everywhere. "You cannot escape it," the voice whispered again. "You are the loop, and the loop is the world. There is no end, Lena. Only repetition, only consumption." The fog thickened around me, and I could feel the presence of the loop pressing against my chest, suffocating me. It wasn't just the creatures anymore, it was the very world around me, twisting and folding in on itself. I could see the towns I had passed on my journey, real towns, warping into distorted, fragmented versions of themselves. They were all becoming part of the loop, shifting in time, replaying over and over again. This wasn't just about me anymore. The loop wasn't just after me. It had begun its takeover of reality, spreading like a disease, infecting everything it touched. I couldn't breathe. The walls were closing in. The figures were laughing now, low and guttural, their laughter echoing in my skull. I couldn't escape them. I couldn't escape the loop. But then, as if by instinct, something inside me shifted. The loop had consumed everything else, but there was still one thing it couldn't touch. My choice. The figures in the fog, the shadows. That had once been terrifying, began to lose their power. I could feel the grip they had on me starting to loosen. The voices whispered in a frenzy, demanding that I fall in line. But I was done listening. I wasn't afraid of them anymore. I took a deep breath and raised my head, staring straight into the heart of the fog. I couldn't run. I couldn't fight. But I could make one final decision. I closed my eyes. For a moment, everything stilled. Silence felt almost holy, but I knew it wouldn't last. This was my final chance. The world was being torn apart, and the loop, its hunger, its endless repetition, was threatening to devour everything. But I had the power to stop it. I had seen the truth. The loop wasn't just a physical place, a series of roads or towns. It was an idea, a force of entropy. The more I ran, the more it grew. It thrived on fear, on repetition, on the endless chase. And the only way to stop it was to confront it. To make the final sacrifice, I took a step forward and then another as the fog churned around me. The creatures, shadows now, whispering in unison, swarmed closer, their cold fingers reaching out. I welcomed them. Lena. The voice, the thing that had been speaking to me, was louder now. It was everywhere. But I wasn't listening anymore. I reached into my pocket, my fingers brushing against the keychain, the one small reminder of the world I had left behind. The world that hadn't been consumed, the world that I could save. If only I had the strength to make the ultimate sacrifice. I closed my eyes one last time, gripping the keychain in my hand. This was the end. I felt a rush of energy, like electricity pulsing through me, radiating outward. The creatures, the figures, they recoiled, their forms flickering in and out of existence. I could feel the loop's hunger slowing, its pull weakening, but I wasn't done yet. With a final shuddering breath, I let go. I let the darkness consume me. There was no pain, no scream, only silence. I woke up, but the world around me was different. It was the road, the same road I had been on. The truck was there, parked at the side, the engine idling softly in the background. The fog was gone. The sky was clear. I blinked, unsure of what I was seeing. It was over? But then I remembered. It wasn't. The loop had been stopped. For good. But the cost had been high. As I drove away from the empty stretch of road, I saw the world shifting just a little. The landscape warped at the edges of my vision, and the feeling of being watched never left me. But I knew one thing for certain. The loop was over. The road stretched ahead, long and empty under a steel-grey sky. I didn't recognize the place, but it didn't matter. For once, I wasn't looking for signs. I wasn't scanning the shoulder for headlights or watching the sky for the first crawl of fog. My hands were steady on the wheel. My foot was light on the gas. The hum of the engine was soft and not like before, when it always sounded like a growl waiting to swallow me whole. Now it was just quiet. Somewhere behind me, the loop lay in pieces, or maybe not pieces, maybe just dormant again, folded in on itself like a dying storm, waiting for someone new to find the road with no end. I don't pretend to understand the thing I destroyed, or maybe became, but I know this. It's not chasing me anymore, and I'm not running. I drove until the sun began to rise, pale and hazy but real. Not like the light in the loop where the sky glowed without warmth, a dim, eternal dusk. This light stretched shadows across the road. It warmed the dash under my fingertips. It made my skin itch with something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. But it wasn't simple. Nothing ever is after you've been through something like that. There were no mile markers, no signs, no other cars. I was still alone. And yet, not. Not entirely. I saw it first in the mirror. A flicker, like something moved, behind me. Not a vehicle, not a figure, just a presence, faint, a shimmer on the edge of my perception, like the ghost of the loop, still watching, still remembering. Maybe I hadn't killed it. Maybe I'd just outgrown it, moved past it. Maybe the loop's true end wasn't destruction, but acceptance. And maybe, this thought chilled me, more than I expected. Maybe it had never been a prison, not exactly. Maybe it was a test. I pulled into a gas station sometime after noon. The place was real. I knew because there was a cat sleeping on the ice machine, and cats don't exist in nightmares. Not the way that one blinked up at me, yawned like it hadn't slept in years, and then dozed off again. Inside, the clerk didn't even look up from his magazine. I bought a bottle of water and a pack of gum. I said, "How's the weather out this way?" And he shrugged and said, "Feels like something's blowing in, but it'll pass." I smiled and stepped back outside, letting the door swing shut behind me. The wind had picked up. Dust skated across the pavement. The sky turned from pale blue to a bruised silver, and for just a moment, one quick stuttering moment, I heard it. The low rhythmic hum, the heartbeat of the loop. But I didn't turn around. I got in the truck and drove on. There was no destination in mind anymore. I wasn't chasing freedom, and I wasn't running from something either. I was just moving forward. The road behind me might still hold echoes. I might always feel that chill just behind my shoulder, the feeling that something is following or waiting. But I know something else now. I survived it. Not because I fought the loop, not because I outsmarted it, but because I finally understood it. The loop wasn't just the 12 hours or the fog or the chasing creatures. It was my guilt, my fear, my refusal to let go of the past, my need to always look back, to retrace the same roads thinking I'd find different endings. That's the real trap, thinking the road only runs one way. Now I just drive. I don't know where I'm going, but that's okay. There's something about not knowing that feels more like freedom than any map could ever give me. And if I ever see that turn again, the one that shouldn't be there, the one that leads back to the stretch of highway where the fog waits, I'll keep driving. I won't take it, not because I'm afraid, but because I already passed that test. Some loops don't end when you break them. They end when you stop needing them.